go. So yeah, once we start opening up the tractor fleet and get some mid-sized tractors, they'll be used for this job. And I'm trying to watch more real-life YouTube England or British farmers to see the sort of equipment they use and how they do things. Although that's quite a challenge. There are not a significant number of British farmers who run YouTube channels. Obviously I'm watching Ollie's farm. I was quite pleasantly surprised. There's a new flatbed trailer. I don't think I loaded it. Baling technology maybe? No, I don't think I've loaded it. Animals. The last possibility. It's basically a flatbed trailer that you can fit creels to the front and back, not as a workshop option, but as by the creels and attach them. You can attach an animal thing on the back, the thing on the back to turn it into an animal trailer. And you can attach spikes along the side to turn it into a forestry trailer. And I saw that and I thought, well, that's the trailer that Ollie uses on his farm. And he's a British YouTuber. And the first line of the description on the mod said basically, this is the same trailer that appears on Ollie's farm. And sort of, oh, well, yeah. I thought it was. So I've added that as an option, and we may or may not get that later. Obviously it's used as a it can be used as a square bale trailer with the creels on each end. You can put round bales on it, and you can convert it into a an animal trailer as well, very easily. So I was happy seeing that. Now Ollie is a John Deere guy. He has a tractor, but his last tractor was a John Deere, and his current one is a John Deere. So they're not as rare as you might think. Also, tractors this size are not as rare as you might think. There are farmers in the UK who have, we're running 20-acre field is the biggest one, I think. But there are farmers who will use big tractors to do some of their field work. But a lot of their carting is done in trailers that are about 20,000 litres, 25,000 litres, and mid-sized tractors. So things like a 6R or a 7R in John Deere, Massey Ferguson 7700s, 7600s, whatever they are. I reversed that way too close to that wall, so try and reposition that. I believe they generally don't allow anything over a single wheel on UK roads. So unless you can manage to get your tractor staying on your own land to a field, predominantly you're stuck with wide tyres as the biggest thing you can have. And obviously there are a lot of weight limits over there. So running big haulage equipment, not generally going to happen. Back to the field. So, as I said, this is probably going to take us a while. And especially in the countryside where you've got the little ditches running alongside the road and small stone bridges over the river, over these ditches. Those bridges aren't built to take heavy multi-axle trailers. So you are really looking at generally good size but not big. Right, and yeah, America has the roads that you can drive a two-wheel tractor down. So that's 2 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to have a lot of rows to do, I think. This is so it looks like we could have 250,000 litres of chaff by the end of this, which not as bad as I thought it might be. Well, after that first row we are getting a little bit less than a full trailer per load. I think. I think this is the trailer I used a lot of on stream farming, Farm Sim 17. Okay, that's fine. Where's the side gate? I should. Okay, we'll run down the bottom, we'll open, we'll close the gate down. So it's easier to start at the end of a row, which is why I keep coming down to this point. Right, and I mean, I would like to get to a point where we do have a self-propelled sprayer, although don't think they're as prevalent. I think we are going to be able to justify it for the size of farm we end up with. I also think, I'm pretty sure that Brits or European tend not to do silage bales either. I could be wrong, but they seem to clamp their silage. But driving around Ohio, I mean, silage bales is quite common. We watched one farmer alongside the highway was out in some very small tractors with is it here? Oh, I can't remember where it is. This sort of thing, except it was a single spike, and he had one on the front, one on the back of two little tractors, two-wheel drive tractors, and he was going out picking up bales, hauling them back to the yard, and he got them back to the yard and was stacking them all quite nicely in a row, and when we came back he'd wrapped them all using basically the little Ursus wrapper. Railing technology. One of these things. They were all stacked neatly in a row in his yard. But that's not sort of something I've heard of or noticed in UK type farming. They tend to do it this way. Well, that does auto close, okay. This farm has two bunkers, so we will be taking advantage of that. Our next load of silage will be loaded into that one. We're not growing maize, corn this year, so I won't be foraging any of that. Right, and yeah, with the placeable animal enclosures, you kind of limited. You either you just say use the in-game ones, which means you've got commuter train levels of crowding in your fields of cows and sheep. Or you're relying on farmers building them into the map. And when they're built into the map, that's then a field limit. That's a limitation. Now I can add a cow shed in the middle of this field if I wanted to have more cows than the base farm has room for. But it's going to look a little bit out of place. This farm is really set up for multiple sheep fields. We've got the original one up by the farmhouse. This is also set up as a sheep field, and so is the one across the lane. But for right now, I'm using this just for grass, and probably will for at least a few years. We'll have to see how many sheep we end up with, but none of our sheep are expecting at the moment, so all we're getting out of them is wool, and they're eating us out of house and home. But actually, they're not so that field on the right there is also a sheep overflow field. I don't know how many sheep each of these fields can take. I haven't investigated that. But I would guess we can probably house 600 sheep on this farm, which could make sheep income quite impressive. Although we'll be running around like crazy people, keeping them fed, making hay and stuff, although maybe less so, because you can, if it's working right, the troughs should be reloaded during the spring or late spring, summer and fall. And you only have to worry about feeding them hay during winter and early spring. But the only place we have for cows on this map is this shed here and this field here. There's no overflow for that. So once you've got all the cows the field can manage, that's it, you're done. The same with pigs down on Oakfield farm, I think it is, down near the store. Some of the mod makers are coming up with interesting ideas for animal storage, and while they're not necessarily going for fields of animals, I really don't want to pull this here because it's going to get me in trouble later, possibly. They are coming up with typical for Europe cow sheds. But we started with sheep because they're easy. We have the animal extension mod, so I have the water tap just up there. You can turn on and refresh the water every so often. Then I bought about 8 hay bales from the store to at least get us through the first part of this year, since one of our starting fields was grass. I cut that and turned it into hay. And if the weather wasn't so bad today, I could have made more hay if I wanted to, but not happening. Now with law folds we did end up with all of the animals, although once again I started with lots of sheep. And I think it was towards the end of summer of the second year I started buying cows. And it wasn't until the end of the 6th year that we'd had 20 cows bred on the farm. I have the class mowers, so the butterfly rear and the single front for mowing, which is fair enough because class DLC, I figure I should probably use at least some of it. Lift that up, head back down to the bottom, we'll grab a tiny bit. The bottom headland as we leave. Getting done just enough. I think the only atypical thing I have on the farm is the cedar. We are using this I used on Lawfolds. This cedar is capable of planting everything. It can sow fields without previous cultivating, and it carries a fertilizer as well, liquid fertilizer in this case. Now, the problem was I started off with cedars, this one. I think I started off with this one, and the wheels got all messed up, so I couldn't reverse it into any of the sheds. So I got rid of it before I got charged for it, and I switched to this one. And this one got very jittery and ended up, while I wasn't looking, turned itself round and ran itself into the shed wall. So sort of, yeah, I wanted to use the horse pack for seeding, but I found both of their seeders just didn't play well on this map. I don't know if they're generally a problem or whether it's just this map and those seeders don't work. So then I bought the Lemkin seeder, which was this one. No. Where is it? This one. Which you have to cultivate before you use it and doesn't do fertilizing. And I planted a couple of fields with it and then said, you know what, I've been using this seeder all the way through the Lawfolds playthrough, and it's about time I use something different. So in an effort to find something different, I picked the Amazon seeder. Now, I've done some research, and Amazon seeders are available in Europe, but not that particular model. That's a US only model. But right now, look, I've paid for it and I kind of like it, so we're keeping it. And I think the in-game version of it, I go back, no, it's in planters, isn't it? Yeah. So this is the one I'm using, is the 4025. And doesn't need cultivating and does the seeding and fertilizing, and that's primarily what I was looking for. 12 meter working width. This is the in-game one, which is the 2425A, which plants everything, has a much wider working width, doesn't fertilize, and needs to be cultivated first. So that's not much of a replacement over the Lemkin. So at that point I just said I'm going to stick with the smaller working width American seeder or planter, because I've got the equipment to use it and it's something different. And frankly, there's not a lot in the 12 meter working range. I could have gone for a 9 meter seeder. The other option I did consider was the Vedastat. There's the 600S in game, and someone's done a 600S, 800S mod. Where's that? Seeders again. So the Rapid A600S, but there's also a mod for an 800S. And I did consider that as a possible option, because anything over 8 meters is probably good for me. Anything over 12 is probably a little excessive. So the Amazon Fit, as I said, it's not available in Europe. It's only available in America. But I'm willing to turn a blind eye on that because it's something different. I mean, I looked at it originally and said, there's no way this thing exists. Something that plants everything and carries fertilizer, and you don't have to cultivate beforehand. So, yeah, right. But turns out it's a real thing. It did take me a while to Google it. Because if you try and Google Amazon farming equipment or stuff or such phrases, you end up finding Amazon and not farming equipment. Amazon comes in at about page 3 of a Google search. So obviously being suppressed by Google for some reason. Maybe it's just that normal people aren't looking for large agricultural machinery when they do a Google search. Yeah. The other thing I like about this tractor is it has side working lights, although I've yet to figure out where they source from. Night time you get a nice area coverage of illumination, front, back and sides. Kind of good. Done again. That's all the headlands done. Finish counting these up to 200. We've got whatever's in the thing, plus potentially 250,000 litres more. So this is a good yield. I wasn't thinking it was going to be. This tractor's got a couple more hours to go before it's caught up with the Axion's usage. I'm also going to have to give some thought to harvesting equipment for this year. Typically with seasons I lease harvesters for the first year because I just don't have the money to afford them. But I might considering taking out a loan and buying probably a mid-sized harvester, at least for the first year, because there's some fields that have very awkward entries that you're just not going to get a big harvester into. So being able to I mean, eventually we are going to need a large harvester for the bigger fields, the big field that we own, and some of the other fields that we intend to buy. But for right now, we've only got the one big field. So I'm not too worried about it taking a lot of time to harvest.